Hi, Support Fibro friends. We're excited to highlight community leaders and educators from around the world. Today, we welcome our very special guest, Maggie from Frequently Fibro. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, everybody else.
We really appreciate you joining us today, and I'm glad we had a chance to connect through the WeGo Health community. Let's kick things off by learning a little bit about you. Can you share a little bit about your health journey?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's important to build these networks to help each other out. And I can't explain enough how your support and WeGo support has improved my journey. So I'll give you a little bit of background. I have a website I started just recently, so I'm a new blogger. It's called Frequently Fibro. And the reason I started this website is because there's not a lot of information in Windsor, Ontario about fibro. But what I've learned, though, is that's not rare, that all over fibro patients suffer because there's a lack of support and resources. So the nearest fibro support group is in London, Ontario, which is 2 hours away, 200 kilometers. You can't just do that. So all my support has been online. And then I've developed a group of people, mostly women, who also have fibro in my area. And they reached out to me when I first got sick and started helping me, and I want to give back. So I'm 49 years old. I've always been very active. When I was 17, I joined the Canadian military in the reserves. So I believe, what do you call the National Guard?
Yeah.
So I've been extremely active. I am a police officer. I've been on the job for 28 years, out on the road, and also doing investigations. I look really good right now today. I feel much better today than I did yesterday. But there's days, and I would say most of my days are filled with chronic pain. And I know a lot of people relate, but when you look at me, you don't see any injury or illness. Except when I walk, my walk is starting to be affected. So I was on the job for 28 years. I got out of the military in 2016 because I was starting to have issues physically keeping up. And I realized I had a lot of pain. On my job, I was on and off work a lot with illness, knowing there was something wrong, but going back and forth to the doctors, trying to get a diagnosis. So the first diagnosis was chronic fatigue, then Epstein-Barr, then lupus, and then fibro, followed by that osteoarthritis and degenerative disc disease. But the fibro diagnosis must have taken at least 10 years to get, and I'm not kidding. So you're back and forth to the doctor. I have a good doctor. He believes me. The pain is not in my head. And no one in the right mind would ever go through 10 years of going back and forth to the doctor, going to the ER, dealing with people that don't support you, believe you, and you're in crippling pain. So I made it to October of 2019, working the best I could with my disease, on and off work, as I said. I suffered what I thought was a stroke in October. It turned out to be a TIA, and there was no damage that they could see. The scariest thing I've ever been through, the scariest thing I've ever faced. I woke up, I couldn't move really well. I couldn't think straight. My brain was working, but I couldn't articulate what I wanted to say. I tried to get help. Thankfully, my in-laws were here and they called an ambulance. And then I had severe nerve pain following that from the cramping, because your muscles all contract. So I was back and forth to the ER a couple times after that with very severe nerve pain, and I felt I was having other attacks, but didn't know what to do. The last trip, I was not treated very well. In fact, the last trip to the emergency room towards the end of October was very demeaning. It broke me. I was told to go see a psychiatrist. When you have chronic pain, when you have nerve pain, and you feel that, like I felt I was going to have another stroke, and I waited so long in the waiting room that I felt that lift. By the time I saw the doctor, it was too late, but I was still having the nerve pain. I still have the nerve pain today. It hasn't left. And the nerve pain has affected my ability to walk. So now I'm on long-term disability. I burned all my sick time to get to it, and I went months without pay. Thankfully, I have this plan. Now that I'm on this plan, my stress is better. The stress of not having income causes flare-ups. So I can honestly say I'm grieving for my job, my career that I worked so hard to get and stay at and I enjoyed. It feels like someone's died. There's a part of me that is just lost. Then I'm dealing with the chronic pain and trying to find the right medication and treatment, which started all my research. Like I said, I have a great doctor, but the lack of support in the area and the local resources makes it very difficult. So that is really it in a nutshell. I had a great job, was very active, enjoyed everything I did, and I worked in a good place. I had a very supportive peer group. But when you get ill in any sort of workplace, especially in something that's very type A, you have a lack of support in terms of, is this person really sick?
Right.
Does this person just want time off? And I know other people say it, but it's damaging. So long story short, I hid this disease for a long time. People knew I was having problems, and I would say it was arthritis. Close people, I would say it was an autoimmune issue. So I hid it all. When I released my website, www.frequentlyfibro.com, I literally was ripping the Band-Aid off and coming out and saying, this is me with all my illnesses. Do I want them? No. But I'm not going to hide them because I want other people to know so they can help other people. I'm not looking for pity. I'm not looking for sympathy. Resources, yes. Help, yes. More resources for the doctors, more resources for the pharmacy, better treatment plans so the doctors aren't inundated with little things that they can't deal with. So I started doing a lot of research. And then I started meeting with a lot of other people who had fibro, who very different, vast symptoms. And a few of them have, come out from under their flares, are doing very well, from using mobility aids to not using mobility aids, the things that they've done, and talk to them about their treatment approach. And I learned a lot. Then I was referred to the pain clinic in Windsor, pain clinic center in Windsor by my family doctor. And this pain clinic, going to it changed everything for me. I had gotten so bad that I didn't want to speak to a doctor. I didn't want to have another conversation that would demean me, because when you're trying to explain your pain, everybody is unique. Not one person is the same in how they bear their pain or describe their pain. So in speaking with the pain clinic doctor, I immediately felt comfortable. And when I left, this person hugged me. Not once did I ever feel that type of, we care about you. and we're going to get through this. And even that is unsettling when you're dealing with fibro, because you're like, I've never had someone understand me or listen to me. So then I started out getting pain injections and in my neck for herniated discs in my neck. Within 3 treatments, I noticed my pain was getting better. And this doctor and her staff were basically all in. So it was keep moving, girl, keep walking, keep doing your thing. Then they were also leading in the area because they brought in their vitamin intravenous drip, which really wasn't in this area before, even to purchase. So once a month, I started getting vitamin drips because my body wouldn't take the actual pills by mouth. That made a big difference. And we had tried all that because I couldn't get my levels to go up and the absorption rate. When I was having these IV treatments, there's 6 or 8 people roughly in the room at the same time coming and going, all kind of juggled 5-10 minutes apart. And you can't help, everybody's having a conversation, and suddenly I realized this is an informal support group. People giving advice, no one being demeaning or judgmental, and not just complaining, giving very good, hey, I've tried this worked. What about this? Don't worry about it, you're not alone. And it moved me because I was sitting there engulfed by this going, immediately, none of these women, all different walks of life, different cultures, different diagnosis, supporting each other to make people's lives better. Right. And it was a good feeling.
That's what we need more. And I appreciate you sharing with all of us. And as you can see from the comments, people are reaching out to you and thanking you. So this is what it's all about. I mean, sharing and connecting the community together, but also we talk about things that need to get changed. And so I'm so happy we got a chance to connect, and you're starting to blog. And how are you finding that, or like with the blogging? And I noticed you add some extra things like water therapy. What else did you have in there that was new and unique for treatment that I loved? So just talk a little bit about the starting of phases of blogging, and that way maybe it'll inspire other people too.
It's when you're isolated and at home. So when I had the TIA from October to December, I was home in pajamas, sleeping 85% of the time. And as most of us who are chronically ill, social media is where we are. We have all these connections and support because, we're home and we don't feel well enough to go out. And you never know, you can go out and get sick and you got to come back home. So I was home all the time. I found not immediately the, community leaders groups or anything like that. I just started, never really looked at YouTube before, and I started following some people, and I thought, I'm home with, how many years I've been on and my age. I thought, is my career over? What's going on? And I stumbled upon a couple YouTube people who were not involved in anything medical, but made me feel okay with, hey, it's okay to be home and be, not working. Because I was down on myself for that. I felt less of a person because my husband had to do all the work, or my kids had to pick up and, step up, and I wasn't a breadwinner anymore. I felt like a burden. And watching these people on YouTube going, hey, you can do this, and, I cook for my family, or I do this, or, I grow good vegetables. It's okay to be home. And through that process, I learned there's nothing wrong with this. It's okay to stop and take care of myself. And, this is what it is. And then I thought about the stigma, especially, I'll speak to my career with policing in the military. And I know there's stigma in other jobs, whether it's an office job, whether, whatever you do, if you're ill, there's a stigma. And what I mean is you're no good to them because they can't use you. You're a great team player when you're working, but if you're off, you're off. And I understand that, but I felt really bad about it and I couldn't get over it. And then I thought, what would I say to someone else in my position? Because I'm going to be honest, I'm embarrassed. I got a walker last week. I got a pair of crutches last week. They're smart crutches. They're amazing. We'll talk about those later. And I'm embarrassed to use mobility aids. And I really gave it a lot of thought. What would I say to someone else in this position? And it kind of got me together. And then I was embarrassed to come out at work and ask for accommodation because I liked my job. I liked what I did. And if you're put away to accommodation or I would feel demeaned. So finally I decided, whatever, and I started writing. And my initial writing was more about, definitive. This is what it is. These are the treatments. These are the modalities. And I'll get into more aspects as I go on. I've only written maybe 4 blogs, and it took me longer to set up the website. And, I built it 4 different ways, and then finally I like this way. But doing it is very helpful for me mentally. So the biggest hurdle was ripping off the Band-Aid and coming out and going, yeah, I'm sick. And, I don't really care what you think. You have something nice to say, wonderful, just be supportive. And I'm going to be very honest, I had a lot of the platitudes, eat better, work out, you'll feel better. All of those things are great advice, but holistically, they're not going to change my illness. It'll make me healthier, yes, but it's not going to stop my pain. And sometimes a lot of that got very hurtful because, as you know, with the medication that most of us are on, and my beginning medication was a lot of steroids. Oh. And I put on 50 pounds. Now also I've lost the mobility to really work out, to lose that weight. So it's kind of a hard edge to take because prednisone makes me feel so much better. And then it ruins your bones, it adds weight, as well as Lyrica, gabapentin, all those things. So it started making me research the medication so I could know what I was taking. I thought that blogging, by coming out, people who are dealing with similar things, if they're ill, mentally ill, PTSD, it's time to stop hiding your illness. There's nothing, I'm not defective. You're not defective. People have to understand that as we get older, we're going to have things like this happen. I don't know what the stats are in United States, but in Canada, our 3% of our population roughly has fibromyalgia diagnosed. So is that, let me think, it's almost 900,000 people. And I think our population is like 37.5 million, but that's diagnosed.
Right.
It took me 10 years to get diagnosed, Melissa, in Canada. And I know it takes a long time for everybody to be diagnosed. That dark report, like that dark data, the unreported number must be higher of people that are suffering with chronic pain or fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue. So that worried me. There's no fibromyalgia specialists in Canada. They're rheumatologists. Why is that? So by blogging, I got my story out. And I did do my story. It was very hard. It was difficult to give my health journey. And I'm a person, I don't like my picture taken. I have no trouble with public speaking or being out in public. But I don't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore since this disease hit. But I don't do very well with photographs. When I put my story out on my website, it was very humbling. Part of me feels blessed and appreciative that I did have this great career. I have all these friends from all these different aspects, whether it's military, police, civilians in my community, people that I've met. However, you still grieve. And anyone who's done any grieving knows it takes a while. And sometimes you don't really ever come to terms with it. But the big issue for me is, what can I do now?
Right.
Okay, I have this. How can I move through it? And I noticed even my doctor, who, by the way, is from Detroit, who comes to Canada to work every day, he's very forward with fibromyalgia. He just says, this is severe fibromyalgia. There's no cure. So I appreciate his help. Then he sends me to a specialist trying to get me help, and they send me back to my family doctor. They don't know why, because they can't help me. And that's just because they can't deal with fibromyalgia. So I know there's a couple other people that are specialists just from researching on the internet that deal with it, but they're very backed up.
Right. There's a long wait list.
Exactly. So I started blogging for two reasons. One, to move through it and come out and get it out there. And then therapeutically, I was really having troubles and not realizing it when I first got sick in October. So I had juggled for so long. And when the stroke hit me, or the TIA, I was decimated for a while. And I had to see a specialist. And then I'm very open with getting mental health. It's very important for people with chronic pain. And didn't realize that anxiety and depression and everything else that's part and parcel of fibro come with it. Mm-hmm. So I started seeing a specialist for that. And I said, long-term disability, I can't go to school, I can't do anything, advancement. What do I do while I'm sitting at home for the few hours a day where I feel like I can do something? Because as you know, you juggle. Okay, I'll do dishes and then I'll take a rest, or, I'll do laundry and fold some clothes and I have to lay down, I'll lay down. So that's what we do all day. Everybody's the spoon theory every day. But I needed something else because I've always been driven, and everybody needs to be useful. And
cool. And that's what we want to do here, is support everyone in their journey in different ways as like leaders who are more active with sharing and being more vocal and supporting the community. We need to have these conversations. You mentioned a variety of conversations have. Oh no, the internet is acting buggy. It's Friday. But a variety of conversations that we need to have, especially in the workforce. I mean, not just fibromyalgia, but autoimmune conditions which is prevalent and on the rise, or even things like endometriosis, which can cause a lot of pain. And do women feel comfortable talking about that in those situations in the workplace? And how do you bring that up? Because it's tricky. It does create a lot of pain symptoms, migraines. So these are conversations we need to have as a group.
Absolutely. It's very disturbing when I started researching what was available out here. So one, the blogging is helping. And when I blog, I just want to say that I like to kind of explain what's going through my mind. I'm a very chronological person, so I've gone right back to the beginning. But the water therapy that we talked about, years ago, I broke my leg at work. And I recovered by doing aquatherapy. So there's not a lot of warm water pools here. There's only 2 locally, but it's a drive. But with COVID, as you know, everybody's things have stopped dead in their tracks. So I'm not doing any chiropractor. I'm not doing any acupuncture. In fact, I was off my pain shots for a month and a half, which put me in a very bad position for a little bit. So everybody's going to have to recover from, their withdrawals from all their services during COVID. But what it taught me and what I found through the blogging is you can't go one way with fibro. So I'm going to be honest with you. When I first got diagnosed, I didn't believe in fibro or Epstein-Barr or chronic fatigue. And, I laughed it off and said, no, absolutely not, because I still want to move and do things. I was not a believer in fibro. And do I feel bad about that now? Absolutely. But I just didn't believe the doctor years ago when he considered it or told me that. Because it was on the plate for a while, but the actual diagnosis didn't come till last year.
Well, and if you look it up on the internet, you don't want to get diagnosed with fibromyalgia either. So
you're not. So when I did get diagnosed, I believed it because I felt almost unable to move. My symptoms were so bad. All my limbs were heavy. I didn't want to walk. I didn't want to move. Nausea, headaches, things I didn't even know were part of fibro. And of course, now I'm like, why didn't someone tell me this before? So then I was like, well, had there been a better treatment methodology, or they realized that there was a holistic approach to any kind of illness, and not just here's your prescription, thank you very much, which I appreciate, but there's more to that. So another inspiration for blogging, one of my other friends, she got diagnosed with Crohn's and colitis. She was sick for a while, didn't know she had it, had a scope. They said everything was fine. Ended up in the hospital in severe pain after multiple ER, visits in and out, frequent flyer. And that's where I got Frequently Fibro from.
Okay.
So she went in, she was in the hospital for a while. They found out she had very severe case. They released her home with no education, no nutritional expertise, not even an appointment to speak to someone about what you should do for yourself. So there's no self-care routine there. So this just struck me. That was a big motivation as well, outside of myself. When we look at, dealing with fibromyalgia as a naysayer, until I read an actual doctor's research that showed that, no, there's a problem. Fibro is found in the brain and the spinal column. It really hit me. There was this huge, I wanted to pick up a piece of paper and go, look, I'm not crazy. That made me feel better. No one had told me that. So I started researching some more. So as you can see in my website, I'm trying to explain that, please, get help, talk to people, find out about your medication, make sure there's no issues with interaction, ask the right questions, come out that you need help, and make sure that, like with the mobility aids, no one's going to come up to you. An occupational therapist isn't going to walk up on the street and say, hey, you need a walker or a cane. We go to our doctor every day complaining we're in pain. It took me a very long time to be referred to an actual physical therapist and then get an occupational therapist involved. So there's lacks of all those treatment modalities here. Right. So I wanted to hook up with people with We Go Health, get some proper training, and when I can, do what I can to help, as well as help myself and learn more. So I didn't realize what was available in Canada to start advocating. I see what you're doing, and I'm impressed. I like that you're reaching out. People aren't afraid to show this on their bad days. This isn't pretty. There's no one's proud to say that they have this. Like I think I put yesterday or on Awareness Day, today it's a top knot messy hair bun day, and I don't feel good. I'm in my pajamas. It's okay.
Right, and that's one thing we wanted to communicate with Awareness Day. It wasn't, I mean, it comes off kind of as a day of celebration per se, but we wanted to hear from everyone. It's okay if you're not celebrating, or if you're having a rough day, like we talk about it, and that's okay.
Yeah. And then because I'm a veteran, I started realizing that with chronic pain, and this is a little bit sideways from fibro, but we fall into that chronic pain treatment guidelines in Canada. So the chronic pain treatment guidelines, they don't allow now for opiates and certain things for your pain relief. If they do, it's temporary. So what I discovered with the veterans, and I'm going to have to refer, like for my statistics on that, it showed that 65% of veterans that had suicidal ideation had chronic pain. And then 76% who attempted suicide had chronic pain. So there's a big push to investigate chronic pain in Canada, and maybe fibromyalgia, autoimmune, and all the invisible illnesses that aren't being, housed in properly or umbrellaed will get some attention. I know they're doing more research, but I do see a definite immediate need in our area for support, better awareness in the ER. So for an example, I was doing ketamine infusions,
Okay.
which had just came to Windsor before COVID. And I only had 2 or 3 treatments in the hospital. So you're a day patient, you come in and you come out. If you don't get them here, it's 4 to 6 hours drive to get your infusions and come home once a week.
That's a lot. That's long drives.
And you're sick and you're nausea. And I don't do well in cars. People with vertigo can't drive. So my ketamine infusions, I think, would be successful, but you need to have them very close together and very repeatedly. We can't do that here. So now that COVID's happened, that has been canceled. So at least we're trying to bring in all these new alternative aspects, but we need more. And we need more doctors to be aware what we need.
Well, and we were talking before about the support groups, and I know with COVID things have changed, so we've had to move and those resources can't get implemented. I've talked to a few people where it's kind of stuck. They were ready to launch some local resources in their area, but they've had to wait. But one thing we had talked about before we started our live was more of these local resources and support groups that you wanted to bring in. And we're showcasing a lot of people this month too, especially that run support groups. So we're hoping that you can all connect together and learn from each other, because they've run successfully for over 10 years to see how it works. But could you let everyone know a little bit more about what you wanted to start in your local area?
Well, in beginning the blog, Melissa, I wanted to get people to start reading about it, and maybe the people that even subscribed could start supporting each other. So I started my blog, and then I started a Facebook page, and then I will intend to make it private later on, so people can talk privately about their fibromyalgia, their pain, without everybody else kind of knowing. But that way, locally in my area, I can do something right now without leaving my house. There was a huge success with me just having one conversation with someone who suffers from fibromyalgia. Now, our symptoms were different, but they educated me. I want to see if that can help other people in the area, because once I started also seeing a therapist, he was also teaching me a lot of things about fibro that I wasn't aware of, like the pain when you shower, or the temperature regularly, the uncontrollable circulation systems, all these different things. It's just not discussed. And a lot of people don't want to go on the internet and play doctor. I read a lot of actual research, but I thought by doing this, even in my area, if people want to set up something in person after COVID and after, with distancing, we could do something. But when you see people with chronic pain contemplating suicide, and in my career, I've seen a lot of suicide. I just want to help to do one more thing. And when you help you help other people, and it's a cyclic gift, right? We give to each other. But there's a huge gap in service in the area I'm in. At least people believe it. There's research, there's data, but there's still a lack of treatment. So when you have chronic pain and you go to the ER, you should not be treated like a drug seeker or a frequent flyer, which again, if I'm a frequent flyer because I have chronic pain from something that you can see, whether it's phantom limb disease or some other horrible disease, at least you believe that person. But when you're in the ER constantly with chronic pain, endometriosis is a big one. People go in, they're not treated well, they're drug seeking. That's very demeaning to people. It's a tough disease to talk about. It's a tough disease when you talk about treatment. But when you realize it's just because they don't know how to treat it.
Right.
So, yes.
And you've been given the wrong information. It's been incorrect. I know, at least in the States, it's definitely the stigma around it, but incorrect information given to the medical community, for sure. And we see that a lot here and people just then avoid going to the ER, and they may actually have a medical condition that needs to be treated ASAP.
And yes, I realize the ER is not a place to go for things that you can treat through your family doctor and your health team. So if we had proper treatment plans in place already, so dealing with your doctor. So I'll give you an example. My doctor is really good with me. If I'm going into a bad flare, I can pop in. He sees me for a second. There's some things they do for me that help me either nip this in the bud or help my pain relief better. Having that plan in place helps me not go to the ER. And I think a lot of doctors in our area should do that to, one, cut down on the chronic pain patients going to the ER. Then we won't be treated badly. We won't have the fear of the doctor or the fear of being treated badly for our illnesses. And we know what to do, and knowing what to do takes some of that anxiety and stress away. So we just
I agree.
Yeah, better care plans.
That's a great care plan. I mean, that needs to be implemented more, because the CDC over here acknowledges that fibromyalgia, you are making more visits to the ER and hospitals. And I think I remember from my experience in my teens, so this was in the 90s, so I didn't have all this information. But the costochondritis was so severe, like I couldn't tell what was going on. I was in so much pain and my left arm was hurting so much. So at school, they'd be like, what is happening? So I'd end up in the ER with extreme pain. And then they're just like, but nothing, you're fine. Like we don't understand what. I was just like, okay. So it's very confusing and we need to fix that process.
It's funny that you say that, because I had the same bout of really bad costochondritis, and I was sent from the ER to the yeah, I've got the runaround for that. But then I started having irregularities in my heart. PVCs, preventricular contractions. Did not realize that was a part of fibro. No one once ever said costochondritis. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I was breathing in sand. So again, those things are very debilitating. I remember, like, it stays for months, so it's hard to move and do things. Understanding our symptoms is another big, path that we could take. Besides supporting one another, which again, I'm very lucky. I've had a lot of support here. But through the blogging, through the WeGo community, and now connecting with you and some other people, I'm still going to have my bad days. But just knowing I'm not alone. Like, I think the hardest thing when you talk about fibro is the 3 a.m. insomnia. And the whole fibro community is on Facebook or online because they can't sleep and they're in pain.
I think I could write a blog about the insomnia, the hours at that time of night. Yes. So
essentially, I want to do more. I'm just getting going with the blog. I'm investigating different, mobility aids, and I'm going to share my process as I go through it. I'd like to call it my disordered life. I don't mean any offense by that to anybody, but it is a disorder. I want to share everyday things as well on my blog, just not medical stuff. I want to be positive, but I want to let people know it's okay. If you get that down, let us know. Reach out. With fibromyalgia, the hard thing for me is when I started researching, I found that support group in London. I found a support group in Toronto with a lot of information, but it quickly goes old. Well, that doctor's gone, this person's gone. Our doctors go back and forth and move around a lot. We lose a lot of doctors in Canada. So I would like to see, and on a serious note, to see a holistic approach done. And maybe you're doing that there. Maybe it's being done here already, but there's a need for education on the part of the doctors and a part on the patients and their families and support workers. I shouldn't have to explain to someone, I can't shower because when I get out of the shower, I can't move for a day. And I need help when I do that. Families find that hard to understand. So if they get education, doctors get education, it all kind of rounds out. It's easier to deal with. Understanding that there's different medications that we got to mix up and try that may be not for fibro but are used, like the gabapentin, or even though it's very much like Lyrica or the antidepressants or things like that, some people are afraid to say, hey, I'm on antidepressants, but it's not for that. It's for my fibro, or it's for arthritis or low back pain. You shouldn't be afraid or, feel bad you're on medication. And understand that we need better sleep hygiene training centers. We talked about insomnia already, Melissa. That alone, I remember when I first started with the insomnia, I wasn't connecting that I was ill yet. I just thought I had bad insomnia from shift work. The doctor prescribed me sleeping pills. Like, I came home, I got everything ready, turned off the ringer, turned off all the lights, made sure I wouldn't have any problems. I slept 30 minutes, 40 minutes. The pills didn't help. So we need better sleep investigation centers here to teach us better sleep hygiene and do sleep studies as well. Better rest, as you know, helps you with fibro. And the biggest thing I've learned, especially from my doctor, is stress. Mm-hmm. I can't have any stress. If work or my insurance company or the kids are fighting, I get very stressed out. I get ill. So I have to kind of bubble myself in some ways. And that's a hard learning curve. And then the stress affects everything else, causes a flare up. So we need some education on how to deal with flare ups and have the treatment plan in place. If we know the flare up's coming, what we can do to help ourselves.
Right.
So I didn't realize, and some people may be different, but I told my doctor once when I was in having a bad flare up that I feel like I'm having a nervous breakdown. My whole body felt on fire. I was just a big bag of nerves. Everything hurt. I wanted to cry. And I said to him, I just noticed that I feel this every time I have a flare up, and I never identified it. So I learned that day when I feel that again to be aware I'm in a flare up and get the proper protocols in place. Then my doctor knows now if I tell him, he believes me. He knows what I have to deal with. So had I known you would feel like that, maybe I would have connected the dots a lot earlier. And I'm not afraid to say that. That's what it felt like. And I'm sure a lot of people out there can relate.
Yes.
It's a horrible feeling. And I want to, you want comfort, but you want to push everyone away at the same time. People need to understand that angry feeling. So
well, right now our emotions were all over with COVID starting because what is going on? So it's created a lot more stress for many of us on a new level of just even above our fibromyalgia and autoimmune symptoms.
Oh, absolutely. And then it adds to your anxiety of going out because you feel already immune suppressed, right? So you're already run down, you're already sick. And I've described having fibro feels like having the worst flu of your life constantly. And, I do get the stabbing pains, the pins and needles, or where you feel like fire ants are running over you. And that's another symptom I had no idea about before, or the dermatological issues, the eye vision issues where you can't see, your vision's constantly changing. Even eye doctors aren't aware of that. So I talked about looking into alternative therapies like aquatherapy. My area just got, it's like a pod, and you go in and it's warm water, it's salt water, and you float in it.
Oh, okay.
You can have lights in it. You can turn the lights off. You can have music, but you float and you relax. And that Epsom salt is very good for us. So it's closed right now because of COVID.
Right.
But I shared some pictures on my website. I think that would be very good for fibro people. It's not covered by our insurance companies, obviously.
Not here either.
Right. So there's some advocating as well to do on those, to explain to people, we need warm water therapy. We need these aqua pods to help. And even though they're not huge everywhere, they will get bigger. And if not, they should be brought in as a therapy model. Physical therapy, keep moving, soft, gentle yoga. I'm learning how to do that. Good site is the Toronto Fibromyalgia Society has a lot of videos for gentle yoga. I didn't realize that. No one, there's no one when you get sick handing you a brochure saying, look into this, look into that. There should be.
Right.
So I'm just saying, I can't manage myself without support. I needed a treatment plan. Then we need to kind of, once we have a treatment plan, be open to ideas, but as well, have insurance companies realize we need these things. I've had so many medications that they wouldn't pay for, the ketamine, because ketamine's only paid for in the hospital. So when COVID hit, I had to pay for it by mouth. So to take the prescription home cost about $100 Canadian. So we have a different care plan here. So for people who aren't working already, who are on disability, and now they're suddenly paying for extras, they can't afford to pay a gym membership for a pool, or for the aquapod therapy, or to pay for other medicines that aren't covered, or cannabis, that maybe cannabis oil is not covered. All of these things really do help us. And I think there's some advocating and some awareness levels that need to be met. And through blogging, not only, I would hope some people understand what it's like to be sick and not able to do anything you were able to do before. I could clean the house, garden, go to work, work a 12-hour shift, and be Superwoman and take care of my family. I'm lucky if I can cook dinner now and do a couple chores. So then the worst part of it with the stigma is when people see you, say, grabbing an ice cream with your family, you look fine, there's no reason you're not at work. What they don't see is the PVCs, the costochondritis, all the meds you're on, all the side symptoms from the meds you're on, all these social problems, and even mental health problems or communicating with your family. All those things. A lot of people in Canada are fighting their insurance companies to be covered when they have fibro for long-term or short-term illnesses. How do you prove that? And the stigma, the mental stress they go through when they're trying to get covered, even for me, it was almost unbearable. So, my workplace, if you have a difficult situation or you're in a bad crisis, they're really good with supporting you. But when it's something like this, maybe mental health or chronic or autoimmune, some guy who hurt his back at work and he's always, having pain, there's not a lot of support there. So I'm just reaching out saying, think what you want, but, I want to try to get out there and have a conversation.
Well, you're creating the change in the community and bringing up conversations we need to have, which will create the change. So we're reframing the discussion and, helping others, which is tremendous. And we appreciate you for doing that and helping the local area too. And before we close out, where can our support Fibro friends connect with you?
Okay.
On social media and online?
Well, thank you, Mel. You can go to the website, www.frequentlyfibro.com, and there's a contact form there. You can email me at info@frequentlyfibro.com. And you can also look on Facebook and find the Facebook page, Frequently Fibro. So I encourage anyone who wants to have a conversation, I can reach out and help you. I have friends who would be willing to help you if we don't connect. And as well, if you're too embarrassed to have a conversation, we can chat by email or any messaging device you like. It's hard to ask for help, but we're here and we've been through it. Melissa, how long did it take to start?
Well, thank you. How long did it take to start? I missed the last part of it.
How long did it take to start having some change in your community when you started advocating?
It's only been recently. I think I have been sharing the button around since 2003. I started this, just being involved with other volunteer work with fibromyalgia, but I don't know, I'm not satisfied with the changes. So being a little bit more of a perfectionist, I'm hearing what everyone is going through, and it makes me sad because I don't want people to go through anything that I went through. Having it now since 14, so I'm about to turn 40 this year. So that's a long time, and I'm hearing people talk about the struggles, and I'm like, no, we got to change this. We got to change this now. So I want to see more. I'm not satisfied.
Absolutely. I appreciate a lot that I have through, medical insurance companies and things like that. I just feel there's so much more we could do. But for me, my personal point is your patients, when you're diagnosed or even when you're suspected, there should be a treatment plan in place. And everybody I talk to has all been treated. Either they're crazy or people don't understand. I want to make sure that we can get that sense of demeaning aspect removed. We are already feeling bad enough when we're ill. We don't need that kind of other damage brought into the picture. So, if I got lung cancer because I smoked and you said, well, I told you not to smoke, are you helping your patient? No, of course not. So in just starting out with fibro, anything you can give me or any advice, I'd appreciate it. If you ever need anything in Southwestern Ontario, I can help out with. But it's funny, in North America wide, the number of fibro sufferers is growing. And I'm wondering where the research is going. So, how much money are they investing in research, and what are they doing knowing that this amount of people need help?
Well, that's one thing we're tackling. I mean, that's why we went to Washington, D.C. September last year, and we did it again in March, because the NIH is decreasing the budget for fibromyalgia specific research. They've been steadily decreasing it. So we're fighting them on that, and we're letting them know that we're not going to accept a decrease. We need to increase, because the numbers are increasing, and now we're seeing it within autoimmune conditions and arthritis conditions. You can have a dual diagnosis. So we need more research for sure.
Well, you're absolutely right. With fibromyalgia, there's often a dual diagnosis. The depression, anxiety, they're all comorbid. So,
mental health is meant.
And then other autoimmune problems as well. But I appreciate you taking your time with me, Melissa. I appreciate all your guidance and your help, and everybody that you've brought also to my door to help me out as well.
Well, thank you. And for all our Support Fibro friends, please check out all the videos from this week. And we have more interviews coming up next week. Connect with Maggie on social media, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.